and we should be fairly live, and we're going to be live like now onwards practically. So just be careful as to what you say and what you don't say. I'm sure we'll get some funny comments as well. I'll send the YouTube link in a second. Okay, yes, we are on YouTube. Everything's looking clear. Can everyone say hello? Just to.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
Let's now quickly. Start this. Okay. Let's put a thumbnail on there. Okay, cool. So just quickly creating the tags and putting the live. The live message, okay, public, that's all good. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So let's see how many people we have joined at the moment. Sorry, 1 second, chaps. It's all taking a bit, it's getting the live stream started. Once it's all started and up, then we have no problems at all. So okay, that one's live. We've got 6 live viewers already. Fantastic. Let's delete the previous live stream, which we're not really streaming on anymore. Okay, and let's just open that up so you can see the live comments. Hi, everyone who's watching. Can you hear us if you are watching? Okay, we're just going to wait for the comments to come in. So we've got 6 people watching now. Good evening, everybody. I'm Sen. Well, you know me already. And I've got 2 brilliant guests. We've got Anirudh and Chandan. Both of you, would you like to say hello to those who've just joined?
Hey, everyone.
Hi guys.
So please, this is more of a personal chat that we're going to have. It's more interactive than before. So, tell us more about yourself. So Chandan, what about you? Where are you studying? Where are you from? Which point in life are you at the moment?
Yeah, so my name is Chandan. I am from, just outside Birmingham, from Walsall, and I am a first-year medical student at Peterhouse, Cambridge.
Fantastic. Anirudh?
I'm Anirudh, and I'm also studying medicine at Peterhouse with Chandan in the same year. And I'm from Birmingham as well, but I've lived in quite a few countries before. So yeah, that's an interesting fact about me, I guess.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Which countries have you lived in before, Anirudh?
So I was born in India, so I lived there for quite a while, and then in the Middle East, in Oman and Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Moved
wow,
here,
I wish I had such a background. So I'm Sri Lankan originally. I was born in Germany and we lived in the UK ever since. So sort of very European in that sense. Chandan, where is your family from?
So I'm Punjabi. My top says Punjab on it, but I'm Punjabi, so Indian. But we've lived in Warsaw my whole life. And I think that's exciting.
Amazing. Fair enough. Well, I guess everyone has sort of like a different history, right? And a different past. And that's the interesting part of it all. So we've got 21 people watching already. This is fantastic. Thank you so much for everybody who is currently joining. So the point of this live stream is to ask questions all about studying, study tips, and all that. So let me just quickly open up my live streamer. Okay, okie dokie, that's perfect. Let's actually turn that on. I know why that's not on. Cool. So please, everybody, make sure to comment. Make sure to get involved in the chat. Usually by now the chat's alive, but the chat's fairly quiet today. So we're just wondering as to why that is. Maybe the chat function isn't working. It should be working. But oh, 4 likes already. This is really good start. Anyway, so how have you guys been spending lockdown? So you're all at home at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, so usually in the country and stuff, like I know med students get to go back to university, have to go back, but at Cambridge we have like our course is split into two, so preclinical and clinical. And since me and Anirudh are first years, we're on our preclinical stage, so we don't have to go back. So yeah, we're at home basically and doing our term from home.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is why. So people have said the chat doesn't work. Now it does. So people are struggling to work on the chat. There we go. Now the questions are coming in. Yes. Okay. We've got like a rapid flurry of questions, boys. We're lucky tonight. So just to give people some context, we're going to be going about an hour and a half till about 7:30, and so we're going to answer all your questions. Everybody, we're both a mix of older students and new students, so we're going to have a variety of opinions, and so yeah, it should be very good. So we've had one question from OCP asking, how do you study smarter? How do you understand a topic quickly and effectively? So you guys, please start off by just summarizing. I think the basic question is, how do you study a topic quickly and effectively?
Chandan, you want to take this first?
Sure. So I think with studying smarter, it's more about not being passive with your revision, so being quite active. So how I do stuff is I usually make notes, usually first, and then what I do is after that I summarize and condense and keep on condensing. That's not really that's not the most efficient way, but that's what works for me, I think. But then what I spend a lot of time doing is testing myself. So covering things up, like writing as much as I can remember down on paper and stuff like that, or making questions up. I make questions myself, like go through each line on my notes and just turn that into a question basically. And then I do those questions usually, and that kind of makes sure that you can understand every single detail of what you need to know basically. That's how I usually do it. And it's constantly testing yourself. It's constantly practicing. I think that helps you learn things quickly. That's what works for me anyway.
Yeah, I think to reiterate what Chandan said, actively testing yourself. So what works really well for me is like making flashcards and just going through those. And I normally like set two piles. So I have piles of flashcards which I'm quite strong on, and ones that I'm not that good on. So in the day before the exam, I try to prioritize going over the pile of flashcards which I'm not quite strong on, so that I can gradually move that pile over to the stronger pile, so that I'm making progress. And that's kind of like a physical indicator almost of how, like, the progress you're making in your revision. And it's quite satisfying to see the pile on one side going down and the other, like, pile which you've the information is like stored in your head and you're actively recalling it. The stronger pile, as I call it, is growing. So yeah.
So I guess, yeah, it's a nice physical marker, isn't it? It's also a nice motivating marker as you move stuff from your sort of to-do pile to sort of mastered pile. You're like, you know what, this pile is growing, let's keep it going. And I think I had one of like a similar thing to motivate me physically when I was doing past papers at school, just to try and get me to do more past papers. I'd have like a 30-centimeter ruler, and my aim would be to try and, get like measure it on the side of the past papers that I do and trying to get, as far as I can up that ruler. And I think by the end of the revision period, when I was doing my exams, I'd surpassed the 30-centimeter pile of past papers. And I think, although it's quite a weird way of motivating yourself, it's just giving yourself targets. It's distracting yourself from sort of realizing from this whole pile of work and just making it more of a fun thing to achieve. I agree with that. So we've got quite a few questions coming in already. We've got like 10 fairly detailed questions. So one question. So we've had, what's your approach for learning and memorizing anatomy? So chaps, you are amidst learning the anatomy of the whole human body in first year. So please tell us more about that. Actually, you guys think for it. I'll give you my sort of tips whilst you guys are thinking about your tips. So I think how I learned anatomy for learning it was initially using sort of broad tools. Like I think I've got the software called like 4D Medical on my computer. It's like a 3D like anatomy software which I can like spin around and click different muscles, just exploring firstly what the body's like. Number two, putting it into context, understanding what it does. That really helped me out. And I'd say the last thing about anatomy was using McMinn's. So like just looking at dissection manuals and sort of understanding, okay, right, these are the different regions, and sort of understanding how these regions work and how they work on me. That's how I first introduced myself to anatomy. Then after you sort of understand how it works, and it's just a matter of learning, okay, what goes where it goes. And I think there are a few key things you look for, like insertion points, or where does it originate, where does it insert, what does it cross, and some major landmarks as well. But I guess you're memorizing it right now, guys. So tell me what tips do you have?
For me, I've found again, flashcards work really well. So I've got these flashcards called Netter's anatomy flashcards, and they basically summarize all the key anatomy and details you need to know for each bone, each muscle. So what the innervations are for a muscle, the insertion and origin points, and just testing yourself constantly with that, and also going over anatomy. If you want to get a more detailed look into different parts of the body, using an app, and the software is really good as well. So I have an app in my iPad. I think it's called Visual Body, and it you can orientate the body in multiple ways and have a look, kind of getting the picture, the image into your head before you start memorizing it is quite good. So I use that when I'm starting out on a topic. But yeah, I don't think I've quite mastered like anatomy as of yet. Still, there's still time for that, but I'm just kind of experimenting with quite a few things at the moment.
I think similar to Anu, to be fair. I mean, flashcards are usually what I would use. I need tips as well on how to study, like remember anatomy, because I just know. But I think flashcards, yeah, because it's active recall again. So it's being I think I have similar ones to Anu lecture. I think I have Grey's Anatomy, and that one has and I think Anu's one has the same thing, but it's a picture on one side and with labels and stuff, and then on the reverse it has what the structures are, for example. So it's being able to test yourself and to see if you actually know it and stuff like that. I think it's pretty much the same before. Active recall is always like how I learn things, how I memorize things.
Yeah, I think
I'm still
learning yourself
by any means. So
I think the one thing that I just really learned about anatomy was just it's the difficulty of anatomy is the task of the sheer amount of just facts you need to get into your head, right? Usually when you're like younger, it's like, oh, general knowledge is like 5 different facts that you have to get into your head. Anatomy, you're having to get hundreds of thousands of facts into your head, and not in a random order, in like a very organized order that sort of links together that you can then comment on and write in essays for, and also regurgitate in exams. So I think the best way to do it is, number one, flashcards. Number two, having like so diagrams to look at and trying to relate that's like text like flashcard knowledge into the diagrams. And also actually when you're making the flashcards, you can actually add images onto flashcards as well, using Anki, for example, and even Quizlet. I think a pretty fast thing that you could do is for anatomy, actually find pre-made Quizlet and Anki decks, because it's anatomy is not going to change necessarily, right? It's not like a syllabus of a course. So if you find some fairly detailed decks, just learn those, and it'll speed your time up. Because for me, the biggest like sort of thing which like discourages me from using flashcards is the time it takes to make the flashcards. Because that takes such a long time, I'm quite lazy with those. But if I find some really good decks, some other people's notes, I'm using them all the time. Yeah. So getting some more questions. So how do you motivate yourselves to study? So guys, give me 2 things which motivate you each. And I'll start because I guess you guys can think of it. So one thing for me when it comes to studying is just the achievement factor. So trying to finish just some work. If this work has been like on my mind for like a whole week, and like if I finish it, then I can actually have the peace of mind and go to sleep peacefully. That's one thing. Number 2, when it comes to things which motivate me, I'd say it must be just how I know it contributes. So if it's like counting for a certain grade for my course, or if it's going to, if doing well in this course is going to allow me to do certain things after, just the thought of that and the sort of consequences of doing things properly will make me do something than not do it. Those are the 2 things that motivate me. What about you guys?
I guess it's something similar to what you said with the idea of like the consequences. So, and looking to the long-term like impact of something that you're doing now. So it might not be the most interesting thing or the thing that you want to be doing the most at the moment, but by doing this and getting through this one hurdle, you're getting one step closer to ultimately what you want to be, which is, or if you're doing medicine, it's to practice as a doctor and enter the medical profession. So that's one thing that I definitely say like motivates me to do work. Another thing possibly I'd say is like once you do the work, it's out of the way and it's done. So the satisfaction of getting through it and then going to the other side and being done with it, that's kind of a driving factor, I'd say, as well, for me. So yeah.
Okay, very good. Chandan?
I think for me, it's okay, it depends. So as of right now, it's my future, as you say. So what I want to achieve in the future and stuff like that. So thinking about how I can contribute to that. In the past, I think it was more about the future as well, but it was more about the next step, for example. So for A levels, it was, I want to get into med school. So that was my motivation. For GCSEs, it was, I want to get to the sixth one, whatever. That was my motivation. Just thinking about the next step, I think. But I think the thing for me was like, and I think it's quite common, like people say that you need to motivate yourself to study and stuff, and that will like get you in, like that will help you study if you have motivation. But I think it's less about motivation because you know what you want to achieve from it, but it's more about having discipline, I think. So it's being able to force yourself, not force yourself, sorry, but like have the habit and the ability to study when you don't feel motivated, which I found a bit more difficult to get, and that comes with time and that comes with practice. So I think having a routine, stuff like that, will help on those times when you don't feel motivated, because I don't feel motivated all the time. For example, I just feel late. Like today I wasn't that productive, so but it's still about getting through it, I think. So while motivation is something that's quite personal to everyone, discipline is something that's a bit harder to get, but I think that's what will carry you through in studying or whatever.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Going a bit further on what you said, when it's hard for you to study, when you're not motivated, I think you need to have a system whereby you sort of trick yourself into studying. So, our mind is always reluctant. It's always wanting to do the easiest, most fun thing. And so sort of make revision kind of fun. Make sitting onto your desk and starting to revise a fun thing for yourself. And before you know it, lo and behold, you'll be on your desk more often. So maybe put some snacks on the table, so it's going to attract you towards the table. Or maybe say to yourself, the table is going to be somewhere where I can play games after do work. Or maybe say to yourself that you deserve a cycle after 2 hours of work. I need to actually do 2 hours of work. So sort of associate some fun things to work that just get you closer to your table. And once you sort of understand how fun working is, it'll become quite addictive. And I think that's why when you hear about people studying 10, 12, 13 hours a day, it's not because they are forcing themselves to do it, actually. It's more so because they've become to enjoy it. They're in a habit, they're in a routine that they really find fun and fulfilling. It's like marathon runners, eventually they're not like, they are working hard, but it's not like they're gasping for air and they're like dying. They are actually enjoying the burn. They learn to enjoy that feeling of being pushed all the time. And that's when you sort of start studying a lot and you make good progress. So someone has asked here, do you think you have to, 1 second, this question's a bit dodgy. Stop rewording it. Do you think you have to be sort of intrinsically good at essays to do well in the Cambridge course? So of course you're not told about this a lot, the extent to which essays count for Cambridge medicine. But do you think those who are better at writing essays will do better in the grade-wise aspect of things?
That's, I don't know. I think it depends. So like
you're cutting out. The last sort of 10 seconds
of my forte, for example, essay subjects are not like my sort of thing, but
sure.
The essays that you do, well, for medicine, the connection bad.
I think you're a few seconds behind us when you're speaking, so I think your connection.
Okay, I'll just So I think it depends per subject. So for example, for medicine. Oh, okay. Wait, I'll see if I can. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's a bit better now. Yep.
Or is it still
not sure if that made. It's actually okay. It's good now.
Okay. Okay. So essay subjects are not my sort of thing. Like I'm not good at English or stuff like that. So on that perspective, not really. I don't think it makes that much difference, because the essays, well, for medicine anyway, like it changes for different subjects. But for medicine, there's scientific essays. So, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't even that good at scientific essays at school. But I think it depends. So, if you're good at writing essays, it can be useful. I think it is pretty useful to be able to write essays. But at Cambridge, you would learn how to write essays anyway. So even if you're not that good, the sort of environment that you're in will sort of like almost mold you into something that can produce essays that are of good quality. As long as you practice and as long as you're willing to take on feedback and stuff, it really shouldn't matter too much, I don't think. But
what
being
makes a good essay?
Good at essays or having what makes a good essay?
So like when you say you develop the skills to write a good essay, what skills do you develop, and how do your essay writing skills improve for you then to, at the end of the year, be a good essay writer? For medicine specifically. For me
anyway, so at the start of term, for example, my essays were so long, they were just waffling all the time. So I think you learn over time how to cut things out that you don't need, or be more concise with your points. Also having a good structure, so one thing leads onto another kind of. So and just, I think one issue I had from all my feedback before was using terminology, like language, like specific scientific words and stuff, because
I think he's cut out again.
Yeah, he's cut out again. I think he cuts out, and then all of his stuff gets like bunched into like 2 seconds of static. Okay, whilst maybe Chandan sorts his internet out, Anirudh, do you want to quickly answer the question?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Chandan, is there any chance you can switch to your mobile internet, or maybe your change Wi-Fi networks, possibly?
Yeah, I've changed it now.
Sure. Okay, maybe that should work.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely better.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Cool. Okay, so it's carry on with what you're saying, but now your connection is back to normal.
Do you want to carry on?
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. What was I saying?
You're talking about sort of how you improve essays.
Oh yeah, so being more concise,
structure.
I think using keywords, key terminology. And just making sure that you have good paragraph structure, good things like that. Also using key things, like I know that for Cambridge they like things like having history, a bit of history or whatever in there. So a few extra things that you can are always good to make your essay stand out. So,
okay,
which I didn't know before. But
so be concise, keep to the point, use keywords, and also sort of add a bit of extra knowledge that isn't just in the lecture notes. Cool. Anirudh, what tips do you have?
I think being concise is really important, and time management during the exam, because when we first started off writing essays in our first term, it was quite tempting to just overrun on time and spend hours and hours on an essay, researching extra parts, extra sections, adding more detail, and that's understandable. That's what our supervisors said, considering we've only started. But as you progress into your course, like we only have, I think, 40 minutes to an hour to write an essay. So a lot of the things that you might have wanted to include, you might not be able to during the timed conditions. So it's really important to prioritize. So planning during an essay, I think the initial 10 minutes that you spend planning probably will dictate how the essay goes and flows. And I strongly believe that. And so planning, having a solid plan and keeping to that plan and time is really important.
Yeah, that's a really important thing, actually. And I think when I was in first year, that's not something which was highlighted enough, as in the plan was something which you just quickly sketch your ideas down for, and then you just mostly spend the time writing. But you've got to realize that, I think many people realize, in the first term of Cambridge, and first year especially, when you're spending 2 hours writing an essay and then your supervisor tells you you're only going to have half an hour to write a similar sort of essay for the similar sort of title you just did, you're thinking, wait, how do I write all of this in like 1/4 of the time? I'm never going to do it. But actually you can, by cutting out half the fluff, but just putting in more details. And in addition to that, just planning properly and ensuring your points flow from one to the other. So I think essay writing is a skill which you can pick up, as we've clearly highlighted, and it's something which Cambridge does teach you. And I think for medicine it's fantastic, because I think many med schools who don't do medicine, the kids just know facts in a very binary fashion. It's like you either know or you don't. Whereas with essays, what it does is it takes all these facts and it links them into this massive network. So it's beginning to help you think in a more sort of interconnected manner, linking different concepts together, understanding why things work and how different parts of medicine interlink. And that's the beauty of writing essays for medicine. It's a very unique thing, but I think it's definitely good. Now, I just want to say to everybody who is watching, please consider a massive like, so we can, so it motivates us to do another one of these live streams. And Chandan and Anirudh are, fantastic guests and have given up their time to come on this live stream. So, show them some support. And also, please make sure to go on our Instagrams and give us a follow there as well to keep up to date with what we're up to outside of course, YouTube and our medical studies. So we've got loads more, load more questions to go through here. So Nat has asked, any advice on how to study at home effectively, especially during this lockdown? Because I find myself very passive when I'm at home the whole day. That's a really good question. I agree with that as well. I think I've become very passive since I've been spending more time at home. I tend to do a lot of things which aren't work. So I find excuses to sort out my admin, look at my emails. And I think that's a very common theme when you're not, too motivated to do work to fall into the trap of. But then you've got to get into a good habit of, avoiding those traps. So Anirudh, what have you been doing to make your day a bit more exciting, to keep you working more of the day?
I think taking regular breaks between, so I don't try and work too long during like a particular stint of study. And I think also, I think there's this rule where if you're studying for 20 minutes, taking 20-second break. In my watch as well, there's a feature where it tells you to stand up, like if you're inactive for too long. So I think that's like one of the major causes for being distracted, is that you sit down for too long and you're not moving, and like it's quite difficult to just sit down, study, and take in all of that material. So I think giving yourself a break is really important in between, and then coming back to it afterwards. I find that to be quite helpful.
Okay, so lots of breaks. So I guess in those breaks you get to to do whatever those distractions were, and then you don't end up spending half an hour doing them. You only have 5 minutes to go and do those.
Yeah.
Which limits your time doing stuff other than work as well. Very good. Chandan?
I think similar to Anirudh. So when I have breaks, for example, I like to go to the garden and just walk around, basically listening to music or whatever. Or going for walks, stuff like that. Love being outside and stuff. So even if it's like cold or whatever, I don't really care. I'll just go out, and it's quite nice. It's quite relaxing and stuff. Just to get out of that sort of like study environment, I guess, to kind of go out or do whatever. Also, I think switching things up quite really, so not focusing all day on one particular thing or doing one thing for a long time, because then you'll get bored. So I like to switch things up. So do this and then go to a different subject or try something else, and or whatever. So I don't know, say if I have to do anatomy for like a bit, I'll do anatomy for an hour or two and then switch to physiology or something, you know what I mean? So things like that just mean that I'm not doing the same thing for like 8 hours in a day, which is, no one wants to do that. So
it can become quite difficult, can't it, doing the same thing for many hours. Yeah, so that's a really good point. I think just going through more of the questions now, there are just a variety of questions, so let's just crack on. Do you think it's really important to make summary notes for A-level sciences, or is it better to do Anki and do past papers instead? So let's rank these. So we've got summary notes. That's number 1. Number 2 is Anki. Number 3 is past papers. So if you both could rank individually these 3 different revision methods for A-level sciences, that's considering biology, chemistry, and physics, what would they be?
So I think it would depend on the stage of learning you're in. So like whereabouts in your A-level you are. But I'd say overall,
the final pitch, let's say the final sort of 3-4 months of revision before your exams.
I think at that point, I prioritize past papers like a number one priority because a lot of the exam questions and their mark schemes and the mark scheme wordings are quite similar. So, and they will repeatedly come up in newer exams. So I think prioritizing past papers, and there's so many of them to do, so it will take you a couple of months to like push through them. So I think if you're in the final stage towards A levels, I think past papers, and then possibly secondly, I'd say going through Anki. So just maybe the difficult concepts or the concepts that require a lot of like memorization, I'd say using Anki. And then finally, maybe you could, I'd say going over summary notes just to get an overview of all the content.
Okay, cool. Chandan?
So I did A-level biology, chemistry, and maths, so I didn't do physics. But I think for biology and chemistry, it's different. So for example, for both of them, I would rank past papers as number one easily. For biology, I think it would be past papers, then summary sheets, and then Anki. Just because I think with biology, there's a lot of content, and I like to summarize it into smaller chunks or whatever. So like summary sheets are good. For chemistry, I'll put Anki above summary sheets, because for chemistry, there's a lot of, like, for example, the shapes of molecules that you have to know, which I put on flashcards. Mechanisms I put on flashcards as well. Things like colors for testing for ions and stuff like that I put on flashcards. So I think there wasn't too much of that in biology. It was yeah, for those two I would do those. But for past papers, for both of them, like, past papers are number one easily, because it is active recall, as they say, and as Amit said, it's learning about the wording that examiners are looking for in exams and things. Because at the end of the day, you are learning this stuff for an exam, so you have to kind of tailor your revision to the exam, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So past papers are really useful for that.
I'd say, yeah, when it comes to being good at exams, it's not actually being able to know the individual facts, it's being able to put it into context. And so Anki is, I think, most useful when you're learning the raw facts. It's like when you're understanding, or just not only understanding, it's like getting the numbers into their heads, getting the equation into your head, because you need to know the equation for you to then be able to do even a past paper. You need to know the equation for you to then even be able to write a summary, a few summary notes with these equations, right? And so I would personally say in the sciences generally, the order of importance when it comes to revision would be sort of summary notes and past papers actually at the same level, because summary notes, I think, work hand in hand with past papers. And then you can actually write summary papers from doing past papers, which is what I did. So when I'd make mistakes in my past papers, I'd get those common topics and I'd like write down those common topics that I'm making loads of mistakes in. Then I write summary notes on those commonly mistaken topics, and then memorize those summary sheets. And then if I do those questions again, I then didn't make those mistakes. Whereas Anki would have been much more useful, as Anirudh said, in a different part of my revision if I had used it in my A-levels, which I wish I had, but I didn't know about. And that would have been just to get things into my head. For example, the charges and ions, or like the different structures of metals, or the different structures of crystals, or like the different sort of bond angles and stuff. But even then, for bond angles, a lot of the things that I realized were it's all about visualizing it and having creating like a mental sort of simulation of what's going on. Whereas I think Anki can be quite just fact-based. It's like very disjointed, like, how can I say, do you know it or not sort of thing. It's very 0-1 on-off sort of thing. But that's useful right at the beginning of learning. It's a variety of opinions, but the main thing, for those of you who don't know what Anki is like a flashcard software. It's sort of one where you write questions and answers. So, if it's, for example, says, what color is the sky? And you don't know the color, that, you click green, blue, or yellow, you click green, it says wrong, the color is blue. Then you're like, you're right. Then you do it again in 10 minutes, and it sort of spaces it out such that you help to memorize it very effectively. So yeah, that's important to know about. I recommend Anki, but I think Anki and Quizlet are more useful when you come to med school, when you're learning huge volumes of stuff. But past papers are undoubtedly extremely important because you need to know how to use your knowledge in an exam setting. Moving on, is chemistry a large component of the Cambridge medicine course? That's a really good question from T.S. Namer. Saruk, I think if I would start off with that, the reason why Cambridge is so keen about chemistry and getting a good grade in chemistry isn't actually because the Cambridge course involves lots of chemistry. I think chemistry, if you can do chemistry well, you can do the Cambridge course well. And that's because chemistry involves a variety of both mathematical rigor, but also sort of conceptual understanding. And the Cambridge course is very much like that. There are some parts that just require you to understand like pretty weird concepts. And there are some parts which require you to be fairly good at maths, like in physiology. So because chemistry has such a good sort of mixture of both to quite a difficult level of comprehension, I think Cambridge find chemistry very important. I think biology doesn't really test you mathematically too much, and sort of mathematics doesn't require you to understand complex concepts. So yeah, I think that's why Cambridge like chemistry so much. And also chemistry is very hard, and the Cambridge course is very hard. So if you can do chemistry, if you can work hard enough for that, I think it gives the Cambridge missions people confidence that you can do well in the Cambridge course. Gents, what do you think about whether chemistry is a large component of the Cambridge medicine course or not?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a large component of the course. I think it's more that because when you're doing medicine, you're learning a lot of biology anyway, so they're going to be spending a lot of time teaching you that. I think chemistry is like in our biochemistry course, it's kind of like a prerequisite. You kind of need to have a good fundamental understanding of organic chemistry and so on in order to be able to do the course and like get a good grasp of it. So, and they won't spend like time teaching you the chemical basis for it. It's more going over the biological basis for it. So I think that's why they kind of need chemistry as it's an important part of the course, I think.
I mean, yeah, I think pretty much the same thing. So biochemistry is one of our 3 main modules. So I guess you could, well, it's a bit of both of biology and chemistry, I guess. But as I said, like the fundamentals of chemistry, you kind of need to have a good grasp of, which is why they stress it so much especially for biochemistry, but also for some of the others as well, because a lot of maths and chemistry as well, which is always useful, especially in medicine. So I think that's why they stress it so much. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So let's now move on to the next question that's been asked. How do you recommend studying for A-level physics? So, Anirudh, did you do physics?
Yeah, I did biology, chemistry, and physics. So A-level. I think for A-level physics, I was actually going to mention a point on one of the previous questions about like how to learn for I think A-levels with the different like revision techniques. With physics, in A-level, you're given the formula sheet. So you're given a bunch of equations that you can use for your actual exam. And one thing that I particularly fell into the trap of initially was just relying on the formula sheet and not actually going over the formulas myself. Because in my GCSE, I had to memorize the equations. And in A-level, we were just given them during the exam. So one thing I learned to work on was actually understanding where the equations are from. So the derivations of, not all of them, but some of the key ones. Like, for example, the circular motion equation, like learning its derivation is quite useful because by doing that, you're learning how to apply the equation. And that's what A-level physics is pretty much, because it's applying those equations into different scenarios and settings, like practical scenarios, and reaching an answer. So yeah, calculations play a large part of A-level physics, and the worded questions and the explanation questions, which were mainly like practical, like 6 markers, and like explain, for example, one of the gas laws, which was a 3 marker, would be, I just use Anki and flashcards for them and use past papers to go over them. So
Yep, I would have a similar thing as well. At A-level, it's so easy to become dependent on the equation sheet, such that you don't actually bother memorizing the equations. And so, like, just because you don't need to know them doesn't mean you shouldn't know them, because when you see the question, the clever students, the ones who get the good marks, they quickly know which equation to use because they know the equations in their head. Whereas if you didn't know which equation to use, you're then going to be like an old grandmother flicking through the equation sheet. Which section do I go to? Oh, yeah, this section. Okay, now when you find the section, you're like, okay, I've got these variables in the question. Which equation summarizes the it summarizes the question correctly. Which one do I use? So, but if you've got practice sort of using those equations and they're in your head, as soon as you see the question, you know, okay, right, it's going to be that equation from this. Okay, right, I need to maybe modify it, maybe put in a different variable, then bang, there you can start doing the question and start writing your working out very quickly. So that's the benefit of knowing the equations, as opposed to, and I think that's a big thing in physics. Physics is, I think, defined by equations. If you know your equations properly, if you can define them, define every single term and rearrange them and use them appropriately, you do very well in physics, personally. Right, we're getting loads of questions coming in, so let's quickly move on. I want to do architecture at Cambridge. Any tips for succeeding in maths, especially? So, gents, tips for doing well in maths. I think Chandan would be quite good for this one.
So maths was my weakest subject at A level, but I think how I did maths was like, okay, I did a few notes. Like, okay, by notes I mean flashcards, because equations or certain things that you just have to remember. Anything that I had to like remember, like equations or numbers or whatever, anything like that, I put on flashcards. But that was literally like a good 3-4% of my revision. The rest of it was just questions, because I think up until GCSE, like I was quite naturally good at maths, I think. But when the jump from GCSE to A level, I found it so big. Like I just know. But so I think for me, it was more about doing loads and loads of questions and applying the concepts that you learn in school to past paper questions or exam questions. And there are literally so many online. Like the website I use was Physics and Maths Tutor. Yeah, that was a godsend, because it had questions from the past, like the old spec as well, which are literally, you can use those, it's fine. You don't have to do the new spec ones, like not just the new spec ones. I mean, so all the way back from 2005, I was doing all those questions, and I think that was literally it. Like, as in, or even in from the textbook, for example, I would go to a chapter that I'm like struggling with and just do all the questions that I could from there, just because that was really that was the only way that I could understand it. You can't. Maths is not one of those subjects where you can like learn content and just do the exams. It's a skill-based subject, so you have to learn the skill whether in lessons and then be able to apply it to questions. And when questions get more difficult and they're worth more marks, for example, you have to have that practice in order to be able to do those and do those well. So literally all I can say for maths is just practice, honestly. And if you don't get something, go to your teacher. Don't be afraid to go to your teacher or ask other people about how can I do this? What am I doing wrong? Because sometimes it can be quite hard to see like what you have to do, whatever. So
I think maths is honestly like learning how to bake a cake. You know, there's a right way. There's generally one right way to bake the cake. It's not like other subjects where there's a different way, a variety of ways. And if you don't know how to bake the cake, then you're going to try different things until you get it correct eventually. Alternatively, you can just watch a tutorial online for that type of question. They teach you how the steps of making a cake, and then you can just do a few practice questions. You're like, that's the recipe. I follow this, put in the numbers, ta-da, I get the answer. So maths, a lot of it's by practicing. You learn the different recipes to do the questions. And once you learn the methodology, the recipes, how to do things, then maths becomes very, very easy. So yeah, moving on from maths. Are you guys in halls, or have you decided to stay at home or lockdown, during lockdown? So I'm in halls because I have to be, since I'm a medical student. Chandan and Anirudh?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Are we all in the same? Are you all at home, or so I'm in university accommodation at the moment. But are you guys at home at the moment?
Yeah. We're at home because we're preclinical students, so we don't have any clinical attachments as of yet. So we're told by the university to do the term from home.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that's quite good and quite bad at the same time. It's good because you didn't have to be here. You can save money on rent, which adds up to it adds up to a good few £1,000s a term. So you can save money on that. But I guess the downside is you're at home and not seeing friends. But I guess everyone's in that same boat at the moment. Even us being back at university, it's not like you're seeing friends or just seeing housemates. So it's an interesting experience. yes, this video is going to be available on the channel for everybody to watch later. So please do go watch this afterwards. Do you use timetables to structure your week? So people, consensus on timetables, are they quite restricting or are they quite useful when you use them properly?
I think if you use them properly, they can be quite helpful, but it's all about.
Chandan's like, I think Chandan, you can go after Anirudh, I think, on this one.
Yeah. So I think the way you use them is really important, and like the amount of flexibility you add, because and you have to be quite realistic before you set a timetable. Like I've fallen into the trap many times of trying to force myself through like 10 hours of studying a day or something in my timetable, but that's just not feasible at some points, and you have like unexpected things that come up and you might have to go and attend to. So I think timetables, I don't use them as much anymore. I think it's more I kind of do it by topic. I think it's called, Ali Abdal had a video on it, which was like a retrospective timetabling, which I found quite helpful, which is you list all the topics that you need to go over and prioritize them, like using a color coding system, and you just work through that color coding system, and eventually with the aim of making everything like secure in your understanding. So I kind of just do that at the moment, and that allows me to tailor my studying in with other things that are going on in my life. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, actually. Instead of going by time and timetabling, go by topic. And once you understand a topic, then you can tick it green as in your retrospective timetabling method, and then just make sure everything becomes green at a certain time point, and then lo and behold, you're ready for the exams. You're not having to sweat 10 hours a day and not socialize for the whole year. There are equally some people who just do sweat and work ridiculous hours per day, and you never see them, and then they pop up in the last few years of clinical school, and you're like, where have you been? And turns out they've been hiding under a rock, working as hard as they can. So it's all about working efficiently and also having time to socialize, as opposed to not working at all and socializing, or working too much and not socializing. It's a mix. That's important. Chandan, any tips?
Yeah.
I think my connection is really weird. I promise I'm not trying to interrupt. I think it's just the sound just comes all at once. But yeah.
No
anyways, I think for timetabling, I used it at GCSE quite a lot because I had quite a lot of subjects to do. So I found it easy to divide my time between them. I kind of went off timetables though after a while, because I just found, I think what I prefer now is, this is just me though. It's like, it depends on the person, I think, if timetabling is something that's good for you. But I just like listing what I had to get done, like in the year, and then in the month, and then week, and then in the day, and then just find the time to do it basically whenever I feel like in the. I think sometimes if I'm not motivated, or if I'm not like in the right mind or whatever, I'd rather take a break and then just work each one, for example. So I think, because I've learned how to discipline myself, as I was saying before, like I know I'll get it done within the day. It just may be within the time that I would set for myself. So I don't really do timetabling anymore, but I like using safety too, and then just ticking things off basically as I do them in the day. Yeah.
That's a good tip. Okay, just wondering. Just make sure you check Facebook as well, because I think we're communicating in there. So both of you, could you just please check that on there? And equally, next question whilst you're doing that, someone said A-levels are cancelled, what's the point anymore? Well, there's definitely a point, because you are still going to get A-level grades. Your A-level exams might have been cancelled, but you're still going to get grades. And so because of that, you need to be very careful understanding your school teachers are going to be giving you grades. You're going to have like internal school exams. The government might give you like mini exams, which add up to like a complete grade at the end of it. So it's really important to understand that exams aren't completely cancelled. You will still be tested, so don't slack at all. Don't like slack completely. Slacking is not good. Our first year starting a YouTube channel. So, gents, are either of you considering starting a YouTube channel?
Well, I'm not too sure at the moment,
soon, but
we never know. We never know what happens.
Never know. Okay. Never say never, as Justin Bieber would say, right? To get into Cambridge, would they require you to have personal experience with the subject you want to do as opposed to just good grades? I think 100%, especially for medicine. They look for work experience like nothing else. They look for volunteering. You guys talk about it. I need to run down to the kitchen quickly, so please continue. I'm going to mute myself and I'll be back in 2 minutes. So yeah, do you need work experience when you're applying for subjects at Cambridge on top of good grades?
I think for medicine, work experience is kind of important, like for all medical schools. I'm not too sure about the other subjects, but I think for vet med, it's needed as well. Chandan, do you have anything to add to that?
I think so. Work experience has quite a few uses. I think first of all, it helps you decide if that's what you want to do, because at the end of the day, this is vocational subject. So you need to be able to see if you like the environment, because it kind of, I think it's glamorized quite with people and stuff. But then if you go into the sort of setting, you'll see where it's relaxed. So it's really helpful for you as well. But also, in a sense, I mean, it gives you something to talk about at interviews, for example. So when they ask you, like, what have you seen that helped you, decide if medicine was for you, you can do something from work experience. Like, do you need it? I think for Cambridge specifically, it's less, like, they look at it less because it is more of an, like, they have more focus on the academic side, I think. Usually, but in general, like, work experience is really useful, and volunteering, I think is better than work experience, just because it's a longer period of time, for example. So yeah, but
yeah, I think this year, given like COVID and lockdown, I think work experience is playing a less important role in the Cambridge application process.
Yeah, because like you can't go out basically get work experience and stuff. But so I think whatever you can do at home, online or whatever, it's all useful, because it's about transferable skills at the end of the day, as well, like work experience and stuff. So where can you get those skills from? Can you get those skills from other things or other experiences? Get creative with it, I think, is the best advice I can give, because in lockdown they can't expect anything, and it's not like anyone's going to be accepting any applications for work experience or whatever. So yeah.
Fantastic. Right, I'm back in good time. Sorry about that. Right, hopefully you guys answered that very well. Right, next question. Anyone here have Olympiad experience? And if so, any preparation tips? So did any of you do the Olympiads at school?
Yeah, so in chemistry
and
in chemistry and biology, I did the Olympiad. And I think in terms of preparation for it, I prepared more for the chemistry Olympiad, and so I did that in year 12, at the end of year 12. And to be honest, I don't think that was probably the best time to give it a crack, because there was a lot of organic chemistry that we just hadn't covered and gone over. So it was quite challenging, but I think going over some of the past papers and looking at worked solutions for them was quite helpful. And yeah, I think the Olympiad is definitely worth giving it a go though. And I think in chemistry and biology they're quite useful to add to your personal statement as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I didn't really do too many of them. I did them earlier in the early years of school. Then I got to a point where I whereby like it was just too much stress, and I wasn't interested in like each of the subjects individually that much for me to do other work. My logic was I'd rather go and do some volunteering placement, or rather read a book that's about medicine as opposed to prepare for that, because medicine, you got to understand, is a cohesion between all of them, as opposed, and also for Cambridge, I guess you want to be good at every single one of them individually. So it's a combination of both. But yeah, although I didn't do it, I'd recommend the Olympiads a lot. I think I was actually studying for the International Biology Olympiad in the first year of my sixth form, until my school was like, you needed like a team of 3, but no one else in my year group was bothered to do it, so I didn't enter for it. And actually, it wasn't even that hard at all. It was fairly straightforward. Right, so someone's asked, Anirudh, where are you from? Oh, you said India, didn't you?
Yeah,
India, but then lived in the Middle East for a few years.
Yeah, and a few other countries as well, but yeah.
And a few other countries, okay.
But yeah.
We might need a whole video on that some other time.
Yeah.
So quick question, someone's asked here, how do you go through a large amount of flashcards? So let's say you've got like a deck of 200 cards. How do you go through them without like tiring yourself out too much?
I don't think you need to go through all the flashcards at once. I think that's not the important thing. It's more, I think the thing behind flashcards is how many times you go over them. So it's not about going over all of them at the same time. So working your way through like 50 and then making sure you've understood which flashcards you you can recollect quite well, and which ones you probably need more work on is probably more important than actually going over all the 200 quickly and then not actually gaining much from it. So yeah, pacing yourself is really important with that.
Chandan?
So what was the question again?
Question was all about wait, I forgot the question myself. Oh, how do you get through a large volume of flashcards? Yep.
So how do I get through flashcards? I don't think I ever really used flashcards like so much that had huge volumes of them. I think now, because we do anatomy, I'm gonna have quite a lot of cards to use, but I haven't really been like getting through like vast amounts yet. But I think what I would usually do is just, I don't know actually. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, to be fair. I think I'm pretty good at this.
I guess you guys are quite early on. I think I've done quite a few large volumes of flashcards because I've been used to doing like crunch time at the end of exams and all. And I think it's a matter of sometimes like saying to yourself, okay, you're going to go through like at least half of the 200. So once you get to about 70, your mind's like pretty much blown, because even 70 flashcards is a lot. And so after a while, I think, especially for the like drugs I learned in second year, it's like even if I was like half asleep, just like going through them was just good because I'm just getting exposure to them. And with flashcards, that's something like especially the shorter ones. That's why like I don't like flashcards that are like really long and lengthy, because they're not really flashcards. That's like summary notes. Whereas if you got flashcards with like one question and like a short sentence as an answer, or like even a word as an answer, what I'd like to do on, I think, Quizlet is sort of put on speaker mode. So like it reads out the question, then reads out the answer. So even if I'm like going for like a nap or like just lying down because my head hurts, I just put that on so I can listen to sort of the flashcards getting through. Or if I'm getting to the loo, put that on. And so that's another way of getting through a large volume of flashcards. Remember, with flashcards, it's about how many times you go through the deck and how sort of spaced you do it. If you just go through a deck of 200 flashcards, that's not useful. If you go through it 4 times, that's very useful. So remember, the technique and how you're going to go through them. Someone's asked, Sen, do you follow Chandan and Anirudh on Instagram? If not, why not? So I'll check now. Do I follow you guys on Instagram? Maybe you know better than me. I don't keep track of who I follow. I think I try and follow my close friends. This might be a bit embarrassing. No offense, chaps, if I don't follow you. Apologies in advance. I don't follow you, I don't think. No. Okay, I'll have to follow you later this evening. I guess, yeah, to be fair, like the people ask me actually, Sen, you've got like 630 followers. Why do you only follow 34 people? So this is what happened last time. So the last time I had an Instagram account for like YouTube and stuff, I would follow everyone back. then I realized after a while that like the Instagram I have is more so as like another like outward channel, if that makes sense, to share what I'm up to. And so if I'm then seeing other people's stuff, people that I don't know about and what they're up to, it then becomes quite a big distraction for me. And so Instagram, even though I follow even those 34 people, I barely look at what's happening. I barely scroll. I'm either going to post a story or going to check how a poll has done in the story or post something. So yeah, that's why I don't follow many people. What are your guys' approaches? Are you always like a follow for follow sort of person, Anirudh and Chandan?
I guess with people that you kind of know about and like but not like sometimes you get these random requests that you just don't accept.
Who's that?
So
yeah.
So yeah.
Talkers.
I'm not too sure.
Chandan, what's your approach when it comes to Instagram?
Yeah, I'm saying that if I know, I probably will follow them back. Just because like if I know you, then I'm gonna be interested in.
Yeah.
So I'll follow you back. I don't mind.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. For me, it's more of a work account, so I don't really do many personal things. I think nowadays, instead of Instagram, I like to sort of speak to people, like text or call or meet them instead. But I can't really meet people during lockdown. It's very sad. Cool, fantastic. So, man like Anirudh Krishnakuma. Right, some good comments over here. Is Chandan a good housewife? I heard he makes rice and dal in a jet microwave. I think one of your friends has arrived here, chaps. Lara, hello, guys. You need to say hi to Lara.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, Laura.
I guess you know her more than I do. And then you got loads of people here. Shrudi's here. They seem to know Lara as well. Your whole friend gang has arrived. This is brilliant. What do you think of Ali Abdal's revision strategies? Subin has asked. So of course, I'd say Ali's revision strategies are quite good. And that's the thing when it comes to StudyTube. There are loads of different like people's advice. And what you've got to realize is that different people learn in different ways. So I know like Unjaded Jade has her advice, and you've got like other StudyTubers, like what's their name? How can I say? Like a bunch of like study tubers who all like applied to Oxford and stuff 2-3 years ago, and all of them share their study tips. And then you got Ali Abdal, then you got Karma Medical. And what you've got to realize that different people study for different goals. And so if someone's studying, let's say, for history or for an essay-based subject, their study tips may not be the most relevant for someone studying medicine. And so I guess, given I study medicine, Ali Abdal's revision strategies are fairly good. So it works for different people, and also it depends on sort of what you're looking to get out of it. So I think at Cambridge, one of the biggest things that I realized was that you guys will realize this as soon as well, and Chandan and Anirudh, that not everyone's concerned about getting like starred fests at like top 5%. Some people just also are fairly happy with like a 2-1 or some even 2-2s and just getting through the course and enjoying the course, because university is more of a formative experience from other aspects or for other aspects in life, right? So it comes like a bit of a balance as like how much you want to work. I know like Holly Gabrielle made like a video how she ranked top in the year at Cambridge, and like for example, to do that you require a lot of sacrifice. You need to literally be working many hours a day, and your work will literally be work, and then maybe 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day off to go and do like a sport or something. And you got to have like severe discipline. And so, if you want to have friends, if you want to go partying, then trying to get top in the year is going to be quite difficult if you want to, maintain a fairly healthy social life. And so then it comes to the point of sacrifice. And I guess depending on how much sacrifice you want to make, you use different revision strategies. Because if you're sacrificing more time to your work, you'll have more time to study. Therefore, you can use different strategies. Whereas if you have less time to work, you've got to be more efficient with what you do. You have to prioritize different work a bit more. So yeah, that's a good perspective on that. What do you guys think about how we should perceive study tube tips from YouTube?
I think you need to kind of tailor it to yourself, because tips come from individual people who have developed these tips for themselves. But at the end of the day, everyone's different, I think. So take the tips, definitely use them, try them out, but then don't use them like just because this person recommends flashcards, for example, use flashcards flashcards because that may work for you, for example, or using it in a different way, for example. Like things like
I think it's like fashion.
for me
it's like,
anyway, flashcards.
hmm,
Okay, they were kind of useful, but I don't really use them as much as others.
yeah, it's like fashion, I'd say. It's
For
like
example,
just
yeah.
because like the model
I
on the
think
TV is
like
wearing like a leather jacket.
I've seen some videos.
Okay, I think Chandon's really delayed. I'm trying to sort of
No, sorry,
converse, but then
yeah,
yeah, no.
connection.
So Chandon, you finish your
Yeah.
your point first. It's like a 5-second
That's
delay,
fine.
I think.
I'm gonna sort out the connection.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I think adding on to what Chandan said, it's very much like fashion. It's like just because something works for them doesn't mean it works for you. It's like when I saw people wearing leather jackets, I was like, oh, I want to get a leather jacket. I was like, Mum, went to I think All Saints, tried on the leather jackets. Then Mum looked at me and was like, Sen, you look disgusting. You look horrendous. It doesn't match you at all. It doesn't suit you at all. And so what you need to do is you need to work out, okay, right, this sort of coat doesn't work for me. Try a different type of coat on, and then that might fit very well. It's not going through the typical coat that everyone wears, but might be a bit different. Works for me. So very much find your own personalized way of studying. And also adding to that, a lot of these study tube tips depend on technology. It's like using the iPad, like an iPad Pro, an Apple Pencil. Now, I'm pretty sure that when I was at younger, my parents would have never like shelled out £600-700 as I have been able to now on an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil. I only had a laptop to work with, and maybe a desktop computer. And so maybe nowadays people are buying more different types of tech than what I was able to. But I'm pretty sure not everyone has sometimes access to the high-tech revision tools that others have. And so what you need to do is find the best way to revise with the resources you have. And I think that's what will make you a good student. And it's easy to then say, oh, I wish I had this, and have excuses not to work hard. But use what you have to study the most effectively, I'd say. Anirudh, what is your tip on this?
I think there's so many like study YouTubers out, and then there's so many study tips that they each give out. It's quite useful. A lot of them have I have benefited from them, but I think it's sometimes so easy to get carried away by, you watch one study YouTuber and then you watch another person's take on it, and then you just only watch them and you're not actually applying things and actually getting on with what you originally intended on doing. So I think sticking to what the basic principles of what gets you motivated, what resources you have, and actually just plowing on is, I think, just sometimes much more productive than taking on too much advice and too many tips. And sometimes it can be quite overwhelming. I think there can be too much information out there. So I think watching the videos, taking on what you can, and then applying it to your circumstances is quite important.
I 100% agree. And it's I think same sort of tip applies to my personal statement. When I was writing it, I made the initial mistake of asking 4 or 5 people in the sort of, for my first draft, what do you think? And everyone gave different opinions. I changed it once, changed it again. And I was thinking by asking different people, eventually I'd get a personal statement that pleases everybody. But similar to that, like this situation, but the more opinions you ask, the more ultimately conflicting opinions you'll get. And so work out your own preferences, work out who you are, like you do for your personal statement, and write something that is about you, that reflects you in the best way. And if that's what you think reflects you well, write that. Same thing, if that's how you think you'll study well, follow that. But of course, use tips, because these people have been through what you've been through, so they know what works when what doesn't work. And I think the best tip that you can gain from study tubers isn't actually what they do, it's what they avoid doing. Because generally something that doesn't work, and something that's hindering someone else studying, is most likely going to be something which hinders other people from studying as well. It's distractions or habits like using a phone and stuff. So the negatives that they avoid are something that definitely things you should avoid. But when it comes to things that they do, just work, pick and choose. You're be like, YouTube's like a supermarket. Just choose whatever you like and just take, one box of blueberries, one box of raspberries, and some apples. Ta-da, that's your combination. Don't just stick with one thing, because remember, it might not work for you. Okay, some more comments here. Right, let's skip a few. I've witnessed a proposal. Yes, college married. That's fantastic. My college marriage sort of fizzled out after the first yearish. Yeah, he's not Anirudh is a Malu. Is that like a type of like Indian descent, Anirudh?
I think it's a Malayali or something. I'm not
Malayali.
I'm Tamil. Yeah.
Oh, you're Tamil. Okay, I never realized you were from. Oh, yeah, I kind of suggest you're Tamil. But do you speak Tamil, Anirudh?
Yeah, I can speak Tamil.
Oh, fantastic! I didn't realize you can speak Tamil. That's amazing. I always thought you were like you're kind of like South Indian, but like not like Kerala maybe or something. But that's pretty cool. I discovered something new about you. Lawrence, I'm so jealous. Thankfully, Rooch is back in the form, and Besto is looking. I don't know what Besto. Maybe you got it's an inside joke here. To maximize the number of flashcards you go through, it's about improving the quality of each flashcard. Yes, like splitting big flashcards into a bunch of small ones. I agree with that. You can make magic happen. Okay, how's your college married life? Okay, you guys can talk about that. Sen, do you have a child? Yes, I have 2 children. One's, they're both sitting on my bed. They're both teddy bears. So yeah, they're my kids. If you were dropped on a desert island together, what skills do you think you'd contribute most to your survival? So okay, guys, if we were stranded on a desert island, bit of a fun question near the end of the Q&A. Which of our skills gained in med school so far do you think would come in most handy? Let's think about it for a few minutes or a few seconds and say, I think my skills would go out the window. I'd be like panicking probably. I'd be like, oh, beep, what do I do now? So yeah, I think my my skills would go out the window there. Possibly it's like watching Bear Grylls when I was younger might help me more. Like knowing how to make a fire, finding the kindling, getting some cover first. Also, like I guess for me anyway, the practical skills of like tying a tourniquet, tying knots, and that could be quite useful in sort of I don't know, making a structure of some sort. And also cooking food, sort of knowing what's poisonous and what's not poisonous, because the last thing you want to do is give yourself the the shits. So if that happens, you'll be done on the island. So, what else? Chandan, any tips that you'd have? Any skills that you'd use?
I think for me, I'm quite like creative, so I'd be able to like work around it or be able to find some way off it. I don't know how. I don't know. But I think I'm quite resourceful. And I'm quite like creative, so I can do that. And I can cook. Clearly, as Laura suggested, I can cook.
Oh, fantastic!
So that'd be good. What else?
I think I'll probably just light the island on fire, and that'd be my way of resourceful. And the big fire smoke will then attract someone towards the island. Anirudh, what would you do?
I think I'd be quite helpful with like first aid. I could do a bit of first aid, so I might help out there if something goes wrong.
You'll be standing there for like 10 days until someone sprains their ankle. Then you'll be like, oh, I can help with that. Other than that, you just be standing there on the side. Fair enough. First aid's important, though. I think first aid is one of the most useful things I learned.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Maybe team morale, I guess, motivating the mental health is so important. So I guess when you're stranded in an island and there's only 3 of you.
Yeah, that's one of the, I really agree actually. When you're going through some tough times, even through university, I think, and studying, having a team and having like a bit of a team spirit can really help. And sometimes it could just be just chatting absolute rubbish, right? And just sort of having a bit of banter, and that can really help distract you from sort of the hard work you're doing, which means you're bonding in other ways, which is important. How do you make studying fun? So guys, let's share a few methods on how we can make studying fun. I think we discussed it earlier. For me, it's sort of associating it with like some snacks or with music. If I listen to music to start my studying off, then I get into the groove of it quite well. But sometimes, yeah, of course, naturally, you can get down the bad route of listening to too much music, and then you end up having made like a new playlist before you start studying. Guys, how do you do that?
I think for me, like working in a group can be really helpful. Not just like in terms of sharing like information with each other, but also motivating each other and like you can make studying fun by studying with a group, and like, like for example, when you're making mnemonics to memorize like a lot of content, making the mnemonics funny is quite a good way that I find, like it sticks more in my head as well. So those kind of ways are like small things, but it can really have a positive impact on the way you study.
Nice.
I think for me, okay, fun is a bit of a extreme word, but to make it tolerable, I guess, I think music is quite useful. Not listening to music, I no, I can't do that anymore. I just can't, because I don't remember things. But I use music to memorize things. So for at A level, for example, I use like Drake to learn structures and things. Yeah. So things like that. I got quite creative with it, if I'm being honest. But it really helped. Like if I can sing all the words to a song, just changing the words out and putting other information in the tune instead, especially stuff that I found really hard, I would listen to the song like on my way to school, for example, and then I would just think of my version of it basically, and that always helped. Especially if it's like rap, for example, then there's a lot of words in one short bit, and you can fit a lot of information, which is good for biology, which I always found really useful. For example,
you learn biology by spitting bars.
That takes time, like to come up with things. But I always find it quite useful. I mean, even in the process of making my own version of it or whatever, I would like learn things subconsciously, for example. So yeah, that's
very good.
That's the most fun thing I can think of. But other than that, no.
Someone said here, like, how do you guys study for a long period of time without breaking focus? And someone else has written Pomodoro. I've never been convinced by Pomodoro, to be fair. I know it makes your studying very effective, but I think for me, like, it makes studying a bit too structured. And I think when I study most effectively, studying's quite natural. It's like when I sit down, when I'm enjoying studying, I don't need to have a structure to study effectively. Because I think if you're having a bit of a lack of discipline to study, then Pomodoro might be useful. I tried to use something like Pomodoro, like a study time when I was in year 10 or something, but that never worked. Because like I do like the first round very well. Then I'd slack on the other ones. I'd like take a break, and it'd be a 5-minute break. Then I end up going for like 15 minutes. Then I come back and I'd be like, oh, screw it, I'll just do it for tonight. And then I shifted on to the next evening. So I don't know. Do you guys use Pomodoro technique, or do you just have more of a casual sort of on-off sort of thing where right, time to get up for a walk and go around and come back?
I do not like Pomodoro for me. I can't do it, because I'd rather sit down for a longer period of time and just study and have a longer break. Basically, that's how I do it. I don't like what's Pomodoro again? Say 25 minutes. You do.
It's like 20 on, 5 off
break.
Or something. That's the one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can't. If I'm in the zone for working, for example, and I just stop after 25 minutes, and then after my break, no, I just can't. Like. No, I'm too lazy. I'm too like unmotivated and lazy to get back into the.
I wouldn't say it's even that. I think
multiple
it's just,
periods.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's because you're lazy. I think it's just what sort of drives you to sit down and work is different, and that's the reason there. Anirudh, what about you?
I mean, I am quite lazy, but.
Oh, fine, okay, we can accept that if you say so. Anirudh enjoying the chat. I think all of Anirudh's friends are like having loads of banter in the chat. So he must be just reading that. Yeah, go
on. I think I use it quite sparingly. So sometimes I do like using it, but I think with the timings, I kind of set myself a long time. So I can't do the 20 minutes and 5 minutes. I'd probably have to do like an hour and a half, and then maybe 10 minutes, and then an hour and a half again. So I think that works quite well for me. Taking like a decent break in a longer extended period of time, because I find that working too little and then working too much can have like it doesn't go well with me. So I think like finding that right like sweet spot kind of time is probably what works well.
Because 20 minutes is hardly enough for you to get into the zone or even like do a meaningful amount of work, and then 5 minutes is just too short. So it just feels like everything. You just want a bit longer for everything. You want a longer break, but you want some longer work. So as Anirudh said, if I was to work for an hour and a half or even for an hour, then I'd want like a break that is just long enough for me to be like, that was a nice break, it's a long break, even if it wasn't long. So like 15 minutes is a nice sort of time for a break, because within 5 minutes you go into the kitchen, you've made yourself a tea, a cake, you come back, you're like, oh, I've still got 10 minutes of a break left. Whereas if it's 5 minutes, you have to like run to the kitchen, like throw everything around, grab something, whatever you can, and come back to your table, which means your break wasn't really a break, it was more so you frantically throwing cups around the kitchen. Whereas 10 minutes is, also a good sort of balance there. Whereas 15 minutes allows you to, have a quick chat with your parents and your siblings as well, a bit of a pinch, bit of a punch, and then you come back and sit down. Let's read the rest of the comments there. Sen, would you smoke if someone paid you £1 million? For £1 million, I'm sure I wouldn't mind doing that, although I'd probably get like a slap from my mum. But I think £1 million is just a fair amount of money. If he said like a tenner, maybe I'd be like, no, thanks. But gents, would you smoke for £1 million? I guess the thing is, smoke like. To be fair, smoking, I wouldn't. I don't think about it now. Smoking is not something I want. It's so deadly. Because if you like, once you get into medicine, the rates of lung cancer from smoking are like horrific. That I feel as if even one sort of excuse for doing it could become like a bit of a negative thing. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I'll just make $1 million at some point, hopefully. And just
that's a good answer. Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'll work hard to get $1 million, and I won't have to. So no.
Yeah.
I'm still not too sure. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're smoking as well. So.
That's also true. Andrew's thinking on 10 levels above us. That's a good point. I think when I was at school, the joke was like, someone once, it wasn't a joke, I found it quite funny. Someone was like, oh yeah, we're going to go smoke some grass or something. And this in the classroom, like, does that mean you're literally going to like, in my head, I was like, imagining people like going to a garden, like picking grass off the turf, drying it and smoking it. I didn't realize grass actually meant weed. So that shows you how innocent I was. So yeah, people have asked, how do you stay motivated to study all the time? So we've answered that one already. Hey, Anirudh, quick question. How would you recommend someone tackles an EPQ? So Emmanuel asks Anirudh.
So with the EPQ, I think so I did my EPQ, started in the mid-year 12 and finished right at the end of like just before we went into lockdown. And I think a lot of the marks that you get for your EPQ are dependent on like the planning that you do and like all the admin stuff. So getting ahead on that is really important. The actual content isn't valued too much. Like doesn't make up a huge proportion of the marks. So yeah, I think like organizing yourself with the planning stage is really important.
Okay. Would you say instead of maybe like an extended project qualification, they should just do an extended project for the sake of doing a project? Because a qualification is just a bit, it puts a bit too much pressure on you, does it not? Or do you think it's manageable in your sixth form summer?
Sorry, Son, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, so like when an EPQ, I think, because it's a qualification, because you're graded on that, I personally find it can be quite stressful. Whereas I would instead prefer to do like an extended project, which is a bit looser, just allowing me to like do a project, get my teacher to mark it, and then saying I did a project, of my own accord. That's what I'd prefer to do, because the pressure of the qualification, just makes it a bit. It takes away the purpose from it being like an independent project to something which I'm doing just for that qualification sort of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess that could be true, but for example, when you're applying to Cambridge, it's not like a significant part of it's not a deal breaker at all. And I think the way you utilize your EPQ is also quite important. So in my EPQ, I tried to like branch out and contact some researchers regarding like my project and like do a questionnaire and like use that as part of my presentation. And that's something like I just inserted into my personal statement and came up on interview, which I discussed.
Amazing.
And it added to my like favor. So I found the EPQ to be quite helpful in that regards, but it's the way you use it, I think, is really important.
Me, my EPQ bit me in the arse, because when UCL gave me the offer, they said you've got to get like I think A* AA plus an A* or like an A in the EPQ, and I was like, wait, I don't do an EPQ. What are you talking about? So I emailed them. I was like, do you mind reading my personal statement properly? It says extended project, not extended project qualifications. at UCL, like a proper harsh email, like saying that they hadn't read my application properly. This is once I got the offer, by the way, so I had like the leeway to speak a bit like a twat. And then, oh yeah, so very sorry, dear, Cynthia or something. Yeah, please accept apologies. Please, extended project is no longer in your required thing. Then I just rejected them anyway because I I was putting Kings as my insurance because I had a lower grade. So yeah, I think an important thing about sort of firm and insurance points, sort of applications in UCAS, make sure your insurance is always like the lowest offer you have, because the insurance is meant to be the one whereby if things don't go well at all in summer, you at least get into that. Whereas if you put if I put UCL, which is A star AA, imagine I got no A stars at all, which I actually feared of when I was there on results day, then it puts more pressure on you as a student. So yeah, that's important to think about. What's the longest amount of time you guys have studied a day? On a good day, how long do you guys study? I'll start with that because I've done more exams at university so far. So I think longest time is probably starting at 9 and finishing at 10, 11. That's during that exam time season. And that might be with an hour break, 2-hour break at various points in the day. So maybe 13 hours of studying in total. No, sorry, 13 hours studying with about 2-3 hours break in between. Typical day, I like to do about 4 or 5 hours at least of work. And hyper focus about 2 hours, about 4 or 5 hours of just general work a day. That's on top of uni stuff. I try my best on that. Anirudh and Chandan, what do you guys do, and what are your stats on that?
I think in terms of the longest I've ever done in terms of concentrated work, I'd probably say it's probably 9 or 10 hours, and that was during year 12, just after GCSEs. That's when I really got down to doing a lot of work, and I'm more of a night person, so I kind of start a bit later in the morning, kind of have time to myself to do other things, get stuff done, and then work through the night kind of thing. So yeah, with breaks in between as well. But yeah, that's the way I work generally. And in a normal day, probably if I'm if I want to do work, if I'm in the mood of doing work, I'll probably say 2 to 3 hours. But yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I think for me, the longest I've ever worked in a day, not including breaks, is 12 or 13 hours, which was way too excessive. That was a horrible day, I remember.
Sounds
and
intense,
it was before, it was horrific, honestly. But then it was before year 12 mocks, the ones that kind of determined your predicted grades. So I was okay, that's
worth it.
But yeah, I guess. But it was intense, to say the least. Yeah, what happened? What else? Okay, how much do I do now? It really varies. It changes every single day how much I do, to be fair, because some days I just I move, but no. And then other days I will actually do work. So anywhere between 2 hours to 7, 6.
Yeah, that's very healthy.
Absolute maximum. But
I guess sometimes you want to have days where you're just by yourself or with family or with friends, just relaxing, right? To give your mind a good rest. And other days you want to work quite hard. On that point, when you mentioned the night before your sort of mock exams, your predicted grades, that you worked really hard, I actually, as much as I said that's good, I'd say the night before, that's quite risky. I personally the night before or the day before to take it quite easy, because then I don't want to hurt my poor little brain. It's not that strong. So what I like to do is I work really hard. Now. Yeah, you learn better. Yeah, working maybe up until 3-4 days and before the exam, you can absolutely destroy yourself if you want. Just don't burn out. And then the last 3-4 days before the exam, you want to get into a good routine, sleep early, drink lots of water, get into a really good habit. But you should do these things anyway. But don't be up until 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 days before your exam, or even 1 day before your exam, because you're not going to wake up in time, or your brain just won't be ready. Because think about I learned this actually. When you do exams, it's not because you were ready on that day. The mark you get on your exam day is the level you've been working at for a long time already. And so what you need to try and do is get beyond that level of what you want to be at, in the exam, or at least at that level really early on, and then just sustain that. Whereas some people try and think they can just very quickly cram right until the end, before the exam. I've tried cramming it, I flopped. It did not go well for me cramming. For me, I'm always more of a long-term sort of grind it out sort of learner. And when I've tried to cram it, I just don't get things into my head. I think I just need to like really make connections and ensure it's all in there. Just a quick reminder, everybody, please give this video a massive thumbs up. We're trying to get to like 50 likes at least for this video, just to show some like fantastic support to Chandan and Anirudh for being here today. We've got some more questions coming through actually. What annoys you most about doing medicine online? So gents, what has pissed you off these days?
The fact that it's online. I don't know. I can't motivate myself. I don't think to do it because basically like lectures are pre-recorded, so you can watch it whenever. So
Yeah.
you have to decide when you want to watch it. And if it's an hour, I will not sit there for an hour. I will speed it up to spend less time doing it, which is bad because then I miss information, but I can't be bothered. So yeah, it's not good. But yeah, basically literally the fact that it's online and it's pre-recorded, I just no. I'm too, as I say, I'm too lazy for that. So
yeah.
And
Anirudh?
Yeah, it's been really tough doing things online, and I think especially like the practical components, like you just don't get any exposure to it, but you're still expected to do like an exam on it. So like that has been really tough.
Yeah, I think the practical stuff just does not sound pleasant at all because, like, when I was in first year, not to brag, I remember like practicals would be a massive thing. Like, you'd be like dreading practicals because there'd be so many of them. Like you'd have physiology practical, like they have to go to and sit down for a few times a week, histology practice once a week or something, and you have to like memorize stuff for it. Whereas you guys just have to do it online, which means you're not interacting with it. So even that half an hour of concentration which you might have had in the actual practical is now completely reliant on you focusing at home in front of your computers. Have you guys like invested in like having like an external monitor or something? How have you sort of made online studying a bit more comfortable for yourselves?
So yeah, I use like a monitor. Like I got a monitor for uni, and that just makes it easier. Like I can have the lectures on in the monitor and then like make my notes on my laptop. So
that works well.
I just use my laptop and iPad. I don't really, yeah.
I guess your iPad does count as a second screen though, right? You can have like something open your iPad and then have your laptop open at the same time.
I make my notes on my iPad. So that's what I use. That's my main thing, I think. And then like if I'm watching the lecture, I'll watch the lecture on my laptop and then make my notes on my iPad, for example. And then like neaten them up or whatever, because my handwriting is disgusting. So yeah.
Last question, just to summarize sort of this talk off. How do you guys compare making notes on the iPad to making paper notes? Because I remember when I was studying for like GCSEs and A-levels, iPads weren't a thing at all. Not that like not things you could write on. And so like even to today, when I'm studying, I just like the feeling of pen and paper more than I like writing on my iPad. I know when I write on my iPad, it's quite easy to look back at, and it's a nice record. It's all organized much more neatly. But just the feeling of the writing, just the interaction, I just don't seem to, that hasn't clicked for me yet. What do you guys think on that?
For me, I have a screen protector, like that's a bit, it's like it's basically, you know, the paper like screen protector. It's not like that, paper light. Yeah, it's a bit like, it feels like paper when you write on it, but I haven't got that one. I got like a cheaper version of it basically, but I use that basically because I quite like, I use paper up until A-level basically, and it was fine, like it worked, I guess. So but I think it's just easier, like even it's just neater as well, because if I make a lot of mistakes basically when I write on paper, like when I write notes basically. So but with the iPad I can just rub it out or move things around or whatever. If I want to come back and add extra things like from lectures or any other from supervisions, for example, or whatever, then I can move information around and add it in and it looks nicer basically. And I think it's like the benefits of writing notes out are quite I prefer writing things out because I think it helps me understand things. Like I'm memorizing it as I'm writing over typing. I'm quite a slow typer as well, so it doesn't really work for me.
Yeah.
But I think the iPad, like it kind of combines the practicalities of using technology like a laptop or whatever, but with the, like for me anyway, being able to memorize content like if I'm writing on paper. So it's a good middle ground, I think, for me.
Sure. And Andrew?
I think I'm particularly not a big fan of writing on the iPad at the moment. I do have an iPad and I kind of use it for like annotating lecture notes, but not as like my main note-taking like method.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm using Notion at the moment, which I find quite like useful because you can make questions for yourself, and you can use like the toggle feature to add to it, and then I transfer those questions to Anki, like when I'm revising. So, but yeah, I think it's just not an authentic experience as an authentic experience as writing on paper. And when you're doing the exam, well, not this year for us, but when you will be doing like exams in the future years, it will be on paper. So trying to recreate that is quite helpful.
That's a really good point. As much as you love writing notes on like iPad and writing essays on iPad, as good as it is, I think when you're writing on pen and paper in your final exam, it's a completely different experience. And like your hand just, I think to be fair, writing on an iPad, I find like more exhausting for hand than on a piece of paper. But like you guys will always notice this once you start doing like written exams, you're literally, your hand is going to fall off because you just, like at the end of exam, when you've got 5 minutes to go, you're literally just trying to move your hand. You're moving your elbow to write, not your actual wrist to write, because that's how much your hand and wrist are. Because you have like 3 40-minute essays, one after the other, like literally nonstop. You get like 2 hours and you have to write 3 essays. So think about it. After like 2 hours of writing, your hand definitely hurts quite a bit. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining today. I think we'll call it a live stream there. Everybody who's joined, thank you so much. Let's try and get this live stream to 50 likes just to sort of celebrate this. We tried to get to 100, but I think interestingly for this video, we've had more like people watching for longer, but less people watch. We've had 611 views and a 4-minute average view time, which means that's 2,400 minutes, which is actually like I think 40 hours worth of watch time. So like, you know, people, if you add all the watchers, 40 hours is a long time. So well done, chaps, Anirudh and Chandan. Your tips are always invaluable. And I guess you provide a very different perspective, being first years, having done A-levels more recently than me, but also doing first year medicine, having done a term already. You are getting to learn how you learn a bit more effectively, because the workload at university, I think you guys would agree, is like A-level chemistry times 3 or 4, right? Just in one term, possibly. Just the amount of content. So yeah, thank you once again for joining. Thank you to all the guests for joining as well. We will leave this live stream up for people to view later on. And I think next weekend we're doing another live stream. I think that's all about how to get into medicine, isn't it? Yeah, and Cambridge application tips. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, guests, and have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
I think we end the stream.
Bye.
Okay, cool. You don't have to leave this.